Good evening and welcome to the Dracula's Curse Extravaganza. Yes, we have got a great show lined up for you. We of course have Dracula's Curse. We've also got not one, not two, but 4 original tales by the gentleman who pulls my strings. Yes, that guy up there. Anyways, we've also got death poetry from Lord Byron and Percy Shelley. We have also got monster melodies. And we've got all sorts of little treats lined up for you. We'd like to welcome Ferdinando Santoro to our little string club here. He writes some wonderful music, and I think you're going to really love it. And we'll be featuring him all through the show. Yes, it'll be a lot of fun. And it's a big show, so I'm not going to waste any more time. So sit back, grab your favorite corpse and a pint of blood, and enjoy Dracula's Curse Extravaganza!
I've seen so many sunsets in my life. I should know everything there is worth knowing. But since I saw your face, I don't know where I am. There's no map that can show me where I'm going. The longer I live, the more I wonder if I know anything at all. If I've ever been in love, I can't recall. The longer I live, the less I'm certain that I have all the answers right. I'd give all my yesterdays for one more night. It's hard to make each moment count when you're alone. Maybe that's all I need to know. Until you turn toward me. My world will not turn until you turn to
Death is here and death is there. Death is busy everywhere. All around, within, beneath, above is death, and we are death. Death has set his mark and seal on all we are and all we feel, on all we know and all we fear. First our pleasures die, and then our hopes and our fears. And when these are dead, the debt is due. Dust claims dust, and we die too. All things that we love and cherish, like ourselves, must fade and perish. Such is our rude mortal lot. Love itself, did they not? Start not, nor deem my spirit fled. In me behold the only skull from which unlike a living head, whatever flows is never dull. I lived, I loved, I quaffed like thee. I died. Let earth my bones resign. Fill up, thou canst not injure me. The worm hath fouler lips than thine. Better to hold the sparkling grape than nurse the earthworm's slimy brood, and circle in the goblet's shape the drink of gods than reptiles' food. Where once my wit perchance hath shone, in aid of others let me shine, and when alas our brains are gone, what noblest substitute than wine? Quaff while thou can another race, when thou and thine like me are sped, may rescue thee from earth's embrace, and rhyme and revel with the dead. Why not? Since through life's little day our heads such sad effects produce, redeemed from the worms and wasting clay, this chance is theirs to be of use. I recount this occurrence to the best of my memory. I am sure there will be details that I am missing, and I admit that most of the story is based on hearsay, as I was not acquainted with the individuals being talked about in this tale, nor was I present for most of the events leading up to my ordeal. It is an episode I experienced while on holiday that shall haunt me for the remainder of my days. This incident and the events leading up to it happened in the small seaside village I was visiting. These, or I should say this, series of events occurred to a gentleman named Oswald Good. From what I understand from the tabloids and gossiping neighbors, Oswald was a simple, sheepish, and quiet man. He was an accountant by trade and worked long hours. For that matter, there was no need for social skills, and from what I was told, he was a bit awkward regarding social events and avoided them at all costs. Now, Oswald had a wife, Cora, to whom he had been married for 18 years. She was outgoing, charming, and polite in the public eye, often seen in social circles with high spirits and boasting about her beautiful home and how Oswald lavished her with expensive gifts. Behind closed doors, though, Cora became a different person. She was rude, demanding, and cruel. The neighbors often heard her berating poor Oswald, scolding him for various reasons, like why they had no children, why he didn't have a backbone, or why he didn't make more money to support her extravagant lifestyle, for example. Then one afternoon, if I recall a rather pleasant day from what I was told, Oswald had returned from the office, and she was gone, or at least that is what he relayed to the constable. The constable paid a visit to the Good residence. He was welcomed and brought into the parlor. He asked the standard round of questions when he noticed something peculiar. "I see you had a new floor installed recently," the constable stated. "Yes," replied Oswald. "There was an incident involving a green log. I neglected to put up the screen. The log outburst and embers scattered. I was unable to remove them fast enough before they did some minor damage. Cora insisted we replace the floorboards as she disapproved of the scorch marks and claimed it made the room look unwelcoming. We had it done just last week, as a matter of fact, by a lovely gentleman from the north." "I see," the constable replied as he tapped his foot on the floor. Curious about why there was a shovel next to the fireplace, Oswald simply replied, "To remove ashes, of course." The constable was pleased with his response. After thoroughly searching the premises and being satisfied that everything appeared in order, the constable promptly left Oswald to his own devices. Of course, the rumors around town were that he finally broke and, shall we say, dispatched his wife. In fact, one of her alleged verbal beatings transpired the night before her disappearance. While they agreed that she treated him poorly, that was no reason to kill her. He could simply get a divorce. After a somewhat thorough investigation by the constable, he deducted that Oswald could not be a suspect. As confirmed by his employer, he was obviously at work and could never do anything so atrocious as to simply murder his precious wife. Something like this only happens in large cities, not in a quiet village like this. The constable began searching another avenue. Perhaps she visited friends unannounced, as she was known to do from time to time. Or perhaps she ran away with a secret wealthy lover, unbeknownst to anyone in the village, especially Oswald. Several days had passed and there was still no word from Cora. The neighbors assumed the worst, and Oswald soon became a pariah. Some even claimed a putrid aroma lingering around his residence. Oswald claimed it was from a rotting slab of pork that Cora neglected in her absence, and he hastily buried it in a shallow pit by the carriage house. The constable investigated. He found that there was indeed a slab of decaying pork buried in the yard, and told him to cover it in lime so as not to offend the neighbors any further, and Oswald complied. The constable dismissed any further complaints against poor Oswald, as he was obviously troubled by the accusations and this whole affair. This is where I make my appearance in the incident. A few days later, as I was taking my evening stroll, despite a storm that blew in from the coast. The rain was coming down quite heavily if my memory serves me correctly. Passing by the good residence, I couldn't help but gaze at the darkened home when I heard a blood-curdling scream from within. I quickly rushed to the constable's office and requested assistance, as I thought a troubling disturbance was happening. We promptly returned to the good residence. He told me to wait on the street while he investigated. He pounded on the door, and after no response, he broke it down. He bravely entered the darkened house and cried out, announcing his presence. There was an eerie silence. I disregarded the constable's order and noiselessly followed from a distance. As the constable approached the parlor, he saw the new floorboards torn out as if pushed up from the backside, and a smattering of dirt and blood leading to the bedroom. He spied something in the hole, a white substance. The constable knelt down, then dabbed his finger in the curious material. He held his finger to his nose and inhaled. "Lime," he proclaimed. He rose and cautiously followed the course with his truncheon on the ready. The constable stepped through the threshold of the bedroom. To his horror, he saw that Oswald Good was deceased, lying on the bed, pale as freshly fallen snow, a scream frozen on his lips, his eyes bulged with fear. Next to him, the decaying corpse of his late wife Cora, her osseous fingers gripped tightly around his throat.
Oh, foolish wretch am I, to long for warmth and love of men, when I am but a monster and reminded time and time again. Innocent, untainted by the aversion of the eye. Is this a chance for me to prove my worth? Unveil the good beneath this curse. A tapestry of idyllic flesh, baptized in the blood of the dead. No life can come to one who is not whole. A lamb of man, the lame Lord. The hand that controls my fate. The hate used to nurture me. Soaked in sin, I will appease the loneliness that's freezing me. I have no name with which to curse you by, so the name I'll make you fear is the one that's whispered in the night.
My soul is dark. Oh, quickly string the harp I yet can brook to hear, and let thy gentle fingers fling its meltering murmurs o'er mine ear. If in this heart a hope be dear, that sound shall charm it forth again. If in these eyes there lurk a tear, 'twill flow and cease to burn my brain. But bid the strain be wild and deep, nor let thy notes of joy be first. I tell thee, minstrel, I must weep, or else this heavy heart will burst. For it hath been by sorrow nursed, and ached in sleepless silence long, and now 'tis doomed to know the worst, and break at once, or yield to song. The cold earth slept below, above the cold sky shone, and all around with a chilling sound, from caves of ice and fields of snow, the breath of night like death did flow, beneath the sinking moon. The wintry hedge was black, the green grass was not seen, the birds did rest on the bare thorn's breast, whose roots beside the pathway track had bound their folds over many a crack, which the frost had made between. Thine eyes glowed in the glare of the moon's dying light, as a fen fire's beam on a sluggish stream gleams dimly, so the moon shone there, and it yellowed the strings of thy tangled hair that shook in the wind of night. The moon made thy lips pale, beloved, the wind made thy bosom chill, the night did shed on thy dear head its frozen dew, and thou didst lie with the bitter breath of the naked sky might visit thee at will. My aunt will be down presently, Mr. Nuttall said, a very self-possessed young lady of 15. In the meantime, you must try and put up with me. Frampton Nuttall endeavored to say the correct something which should duly flatter the niece of the moment without unduly discounting the aunt that was to come. Privately he doubted more than ever whether these formal visits on succession of total strangers would do much towards helping the nerve cure which he was supposed to be undergoing. I know how it will be, his sister had said when he was preparing to migrate to this rural retreat. You will bury yourself down there and not speak to a single living soul, and your nerves will be worse than ever from moping. I shall just give you letters of introduction to all the people I know there. Some of them, as far as I can remember, were quite nice. Frampton wondered whether Mrs. Stapleton, the lady to whom he was presenting one of the letters of introduction, came into the nice division. Do you know many of the people round here? Asked the niece, when she judged that they had had sufficient silent communion. Hardly a soul, said Frampton. My sister was staying here at the rectory, you know, for some 4 years ago, and she gave me letters of introduction to some of the people here. He made the last statement in a tone of distinct regret. Then you know practically nothing about my aunt, pursued the self-possessed young lady. Only her name and address, admitted the caller. He was wondering whether Mrs. Stapleton was in the married or widowed state. An undefinable something about the room seemed to suggest masculine habitation. Her great tragedy happened just 3 years ago, said the little child. That would be since your sister's time. Her tragedy? Asked Frampton. Somehow in this restful country spot tragedies seemed out of place. You may wonder why we kept that window wide open on an October afternoon, said the niece, indicating a large French window that opened onto the lawn. It is quite warm for the time of the year, said Frampton. But has that window got anything to do with the tragedy? Out through that window 3 years ago today, her husband and her 2 young brothers went off for their day's shooting. They never came back. In crossing the moor, their favorite snipe shooting ground, they were all 3 engulfed in a treacherous piece of bog. It had been that dreadful wet summer, you know, and places that were safe in other years gave way suddenly without warning. The bodies were never recovered. That was the dreadful part of it. Here the child's voice lost its self-possessed note and became falteringly human. Poor aunt always thinks that they will come back some day, they and the little brown spaniel that was lost with them, and walk in that window just as they used to. That is why the window is kept open every evening till it's quite dusk. Poor dear aunt. She has often told me how they went out, her husband and her white waterproof coat over his arm, and Ronnie, her youngest brother, singing, Bertie, why do you bound, as he always did to tease her, because she said it got on her nerves. Do you know, sometimes on still, quiet evenings like this, I almost get the creepy feeling that they will walk in through that window. She broke off with a little shudder. It was a relief to Frampton when the aunt bustled into the room with a whirl of apologies for being late and making her appearance. "I hope Vera has been amusing you," she said. "She has been very interesting," said Frampton. "I hope you don't mind the open window," said Mrs. Stapleton briskly. "My husband and brothers are on their way home directly from shooting, and they always come in this way. They've been out for snipe in the marshes today, so they'll make a fine mess over my poor carpets. So like you menfolk, isn't it?" She rattled on cheerfully about the shooting and the scarcity of birds and the prospects for duck in the winter. To Frampton it was all purely horrible. He made a desperate but only partially successful effort to turn the talk onto a less ghastly topic. He was conscious that his hostess was giving him only a fragment of her attention, and her eyes were considerably straying past him to the open window and the lawn beyond. It was certainly an unfortunate coincidence that he should have paid a visit on this tragic anniversary. "The doctors agree in ordering me complete rest, an absence of mental excitement, and avoidance of anything in the nature of violent physical exercise," announced Frampton, who labored under the tolerably widespread delusion that total strangers and chance acquaintances are hungry for the least detail of one's ailments and infirmities, their cause and cure. "On the matter of diet, they are not so much in agreement," he continued. "No," said Mrs. Stapleton, in a voice only which replaced a yawn at the last moment. Then she suddenly brightened into alert attention, but not to what Frampton was saying. "Here they are at last," she cried, "just in time for tea, and don't they look as if they were all muddy up to the eyes?" Frampton shivered slightly and turned towards the niece with a look intended to convey sympathetic comprehension. The child was staring out through the open window with dazed horror in her eyes. In a chill shock of nameless fear, Frampton swung around in his seat and looked in the same direction. In the deepening twilight, 3 figures were walking across the lawn towards the window. They all carried guns under their arms, and one of them was additionally burdened with a white coat hung over his shoulders. A tired brown spaniel kept close at their heels. Noiselessly they neared the house, and then a hoarse young voice chanted out of the dusk, "I say, Bertie, why do you bound?" Frampton grabbed wildly at his stick and hat. The hall door, the gravel drive, and the front gate were firmly noted stages in his headlong retreat. A cyclist coming along the road had to run into the hedge to avoid an imminent collision. "Here we are, my dear," said the bearer of the white mackintosh, coming in through the window. "Fairly muddy, but most of it's dry. Who is that who bolted out as we came up?" "A most extraordinary man, a Mr. Nuttall," said Mrs. Stapleton. "Could only talk about his illness, and dashed off without a word of goodbye or apology when you arrived. One would think he had seen a ghost." "I expect it was the spaniel," said the niece calmly. "He told me that he had a horror of dogs. He was once hunted into a cemetery somewhere on the banks of the Ganges by a pack of pariah dogs, and had to spend the night in a newly dug grave with the creatures snarling and grinning and foaming just above him. Enough to make anyone their nerve." Romance at short notice was her specialty.
My son, the vampire, he'll make you a wreck. Every time he kisses you, there'll be 2 holes in your neck. Blow! Blow! My son, the vampire, he will leave you pale. All he does is drink your blood, 'cause he don't like ginger ale. When they see him, people scream and they yell. And they scream and yell 'cause they're scared as heck that he'll say, "Blow! Blow!" My son, the vampire, he's a total loss. And if you should meet with him, do not drink or eat with him,
run if he takes out his dental floss. 'Cause my son, the vampire, ain't collecting it for the Red Cross. He wants blow. He needs blow. He drinks blow. Doesn't everybody have a glass? It's delicious. Yum, yum. It's blow.
A shovel of his ashes took from the hearth's obscurest nook, muttering mysteries as she went. Helen and Henry knew that Granny was as much afraid of ghosts as any, and so they followed hard. But Helen clung to her brother's arm, and her own spasm made her shake. I had a dream which was not at all a dream. The bright sun was extinguished, and the stars did wander darkling into the eternal space. Rayless and pathless in the icy earth, swung blind and blackening in the moonless air. Morn came and went, and came, and brought no day. James awoke to the sound of rain beating down upon the roof as the wind howled around the house and down the chimney, causing a chill. He slowly rose and looked around the raven-black room. The clattering French doors caught his attention. Noticing a stream of water pouring in from a broken window, he got up and walked over to assess the damage. When did this happen? He asked himself, referring to the rotting door frame. He was walking back to the bed when he stepped on something. "Blimey!" he shouted. He then fumbled around in the darkness until he found the nuisance object. "Is that a piece of plaster? What is going on here?" he asked aloud. Ambling over to the bed table, he kicked another object. After feeling his way around the table, he found some matches and lit a candle. Picking it up, James glanced around the room. He was awestruck by what surrounded him. The walls were crumbling, wallpaper peeled, exposed latticework and signs of rodents and feathered creatures. The floor was littered with ceiling plaster, broken glass, animal droppings, and books scattered in disarray. Random puddles collected from leaks in the ceiling. The air was rank of mold and dust. The furniture had stuffing removed, tables and chairs fallen and broken. The bed he had been lying in was covered in dirt, old tattered clothes and a torn blanket. James was overwhelmed by what had befallen. It appeared to him that his once grand manor was nothing more than a mere ruin. The room did not look like this when he retired last night. Or was that the night before? He suddenly couldn't remember. What time is it, James wondered. He glanced at the clock and noticed it was frozen at 2:47 a.m. That's odd, he thought. He saw an uncanny glowing light appear beneath the door. He shouted out, "Who goes there?" There was no reply when something materialized inside his room. At first he was blinded by the light, and then a hooded figure with large onyx wings and a green lantern appeared. Who are you?" he stammered in fear. "I've come to bring you home. You only need to take my hand," replied the ebony figure. In defiance, he stated, "I'm not going anywhere with you until you tell me who you are. What brings you here? Are you responsible for what's going on?"
"James, the battle is over. It is time for you to let go.
I've come to bring you home where your loved ones await. How do you know my name? Who are you? James asked again. The dark figure spoke in a booming voice. I have no name, but you know me as the Angel of Death. I have been coming for you for over 164 years. Your time has expired long ago, yet you refuse to let go, steadfast in your belief that you are not deceased. I know not who you are, but you had better leave. There is no way I am dead. I am alive. I hold true to thoughts and emotions. I even feel pain. If I were not, would that be so? Why do you subscribe to this fallacy? You believe you are alive, but in reality, you no longer exist, Death coldly stated. James was becoming agitated. I grow weary of this conversation. I need time to think. I bid you farewell. Be gone. So be it, Death announced. But before I leave, look into the glass, then tell me what you see. James looked at Death bemused, then walked to the door and peered into the offensive glass. As he gazed, he realized that he saw no reflection, not his face, nor his guest. He quickly turned around and found himself alone. James was clearly shaken and distraught by what had just transpired. His head began to ache, and he suddenly felt quite exhausted. Making his way to the bed and lying down, he closed his eyes. James awoke to the sound of rain beating down upon the roof as the wind howled around the house and down the chimney, causing a chill. The clattering French doors caught his attention as he noticed a stream of water pouring in from a broken window. He slowly rose and looked around the raven-black room. Good evening and welcome back. We hope you're enjoying the show so far, the wonderful poems and stories, and music. What a great, depressing evening it is. Quite lovely indeed. But we're just popping in to say hello and so hope you are enjoying the show. Just a little breather, stretch your legs, stretch your arms, you know. Hang on. Hang on one second. What's that? What? Come on here, Tommy. Come on. Don't be afraid. No one's gonna bite. Except me. Well, we have a special guest with us tonight, Mr. William Westwater from Field Incorporated. He tells me that he has a new song he'd like to premiere for you guys. Yes, aren't you so special? It's premiering it right here just for you. Yes, so what's the name of the song, William? What? Speak up, I can't hear you. What? Oh, he doesn't wish to speak as to ruin his delicate voice, because it's such a wonderful song. He doesn't want to, hurt himself. But the song is called Mr. Mandrake, and it's coming off the new Field Incorporated album, which will be out next year. So, what's that? Oh, you want me to play the piano? You know I can't play, right? Oh, you don't care? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to play the piano on this, I guess, apparently. I do not play it on the album, but I'm performing it live just for you. So without further ado, William and I are going to get at it and stop wasting time, because we have a great show and we don't want to miss it. So just give us a second to set things up here and we'll get to rolling. So sit back and enjoy the world premiere of the song Mr. Mandrake from the forthcoming Field Incorporated album coming out next year. So yes, let's get to it. Okay. Yes, I think I know what I'm doing. Yes. Whenever you're ready, Maestro. I'm the Maestro. Oh, no, you're the Maestro. Let's just do this thing, will you? Let's do it. Okay.
Remember Mr. Mandrake and how he killed his wife. He grounded down to mincemeat when he took her life. Water in the frying pan, turning up the heat. People passing by said they could smell roast beef. she couldn't speak. Blocked up both her eyeballs, slit her throat so deep. His soul so dark and empty, he killed her in her sleep. Remember Mr. Mandrake and how he killed his wife. He ground her down to mincemeat when he took her life. Mixture of a desert, tasty as can be. You come for you tomorrow if you don't want to believe. Standing at the precipice, the foot of the abyss, his square and stubbly chin now, waiting for death's kiss. He has a pet snake cobra, and he calls it Vince. He keeps it in the cellar, and he feeds it kids. Listen to its mantra, its lips crack when it speaks. As time takes to oblivion, it slatters and it creaks. So remember Mr. Mandrake, how he killed his wife. If you speak so nicely, he'll offer you a slice. She's drifting through the veil now, beyond both life and death, staring into midnight with blood upon her dress. Put a penny on her gravestone and dance around it thrice. She'll jump right up to meet you with a sharp and jagged knife. Remember Mr. Mandrake, how he killed his wife. He's burning down in hell now with the Antichrist. La 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 la. La 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 la.
They die. The dead return not. Misery sits near an open grave and calls them over. A youth with hoary hair and haggard eye. They are the names of kindred, friend, and lover, which he so feebly calls. They all are gone. Fond wretch, all dead. Those vacant names alone. This most familiar scene, my pain. These tombs alone remain. Misery, my sweetest friend, oh weep no more, thou wilt not be consoled, I wonder not, for I have seen thee from thy dwelling's door, watched the calm sunset with them, and this spot was even as bright and calm but transitory. And now thy hopes are gone, thy hair is hoary, this most familiar scene, my pain, these tombs alone remain. My head is heavy, my limbs are weary, and it is not life that makes me move. The rain fell steadily upon the mourners who gathered for Mrs. Helmsworth's funeral. It was a dark, dismal day when Mrs. Helmsworth passed away. The wind howled as the rain battered the manor where the Helmsworth family resided. Charles Helmsworth, the patriarch of the family, was devastated. After a 3-month battle with the consumption that had attacked her petite frame, his wife had finally succumbed peacefully in the night. Her last words to her children were, "I'll always be with you." Her death had left a blight on the manor. To ease his pain, Charles drowned his sorrow with the drink, leaving their 2 children, Abigail and Benton, to fend for themselves. Charles was grief-stricken and became distant and moody, a different man than the loving, caring husband and father everyone knew. The children were heartbroken by the loss of their mother, and now mourned their father, although he still lived. At the grave, the priest recited a prayer. "Man that is born of a woman hath but a short time to live, and is full of misery. He cometh up and is cut down like a flower. He fleeth as it were a shadow, and never continueth in one stay. In the midst of life we are in death, of whom we may seek for succour. But of thee, O Lord, who for our sins art justly displeased. Yet, O Lord God most holy, O Lord most mighty, O holy and most merciful Savior." His words faded from the ears of the family as they stared blankly at the closed casket. Upon the return to the manor, Charles retired to the parlor with a bottle of wine in his hand. He passed out in his chair next to the fire. The children only wondered what would become of their family, so they retired to the bedroom after cleaning up the dining room from all the food the neighbors had left. Weeks had passed, and a somber cloud shrouded Helmsworth Manor in mourning and darkness. The children lingered in silence, estranged from their father. His drinking continued, forcing them to manage independently. Every night was an excruciating affair, as they would lie in the darkness, no one saying a single word, until one evening they heard an unusual clamor downstairs. The children listened intensely, as at first they thought it was their father bumbling around in a stupor. Curious, Benton walked out into the hallway, then peered over the railing and saw his father still asleep in his chair. But he noticed mud trailing across the floor. Seeing a shadow move upon the wall, he became concerned. Benton ran back to the bedroom and shut the door, breathing heavily. "What is it?" Abigail asked curiously as to what had transpired. "There is someone here, an intruder," he whispered. They heard clomping footfalls ascending the stairs. In a startle, they pushed their bed against the door and sat in panicked silence. The footsteps drew nearer and nearer, then stopped at the children's room. An eerie green light emanated from beneath the door. Then the door began to rattle and shake. The children noticed a strong odor when they heard a raspy voice call out, "Children, I've come home." "Mommy!" Abigail shouted. She pushed Benton aside, shoving the bed away from the door, and pulled it open. The stench of the grave violated their senses. Mrs. Helmsworth stood there with open arms. Clumps of dirt, flesh, and worms fell from her rotting body. The children screamed as the corpse spoke. "I'm here for you, children. I'll never leave you ever again." But I don't want to. Seriously, really? Don't stop. Don't push me. Don't push me. Don't you push me. Don't you? I'm fine. Fine. I'll do it. Good evening and welcome back. We hope you're enjoying the show so far. I have been told we have a special guest. The people have spoken, and the man who pulls the strings has listened. Everybody's favorite little sappy pillowcase is going to be performing a song. The trouble troubadour himself, Mr. Whiny Pants. I'm not going to stop it. You told me to do it. I'm doing it. I said stop it. No. Oh, I'm going. I'm doing it. Everybody's sappy sack. We'll be performing a number, so sit back. This is going out to a special someone, of course. So sit back and enjoy The Shadow Man. There, you good? Is that good enough for you? Can I go now? Come on, the show's running. Let's go. Come on, you wasted time. All right, fine. I'm out of here.
Just like a melody that lingers on, you seem to haunt me night and day. I never realized till you had gone how much I cared about you. I can't live without you. All alone, I'm so all alone. There is no one else but you. All alone by the telephone, waiting for a ring, a ting-a-ling. I'm all alone every evening. All alone, feeling the blue, wondering where you are and how you are, and if you are all alone too. All alone, I'm so all alone. There is no one else but you. All alone by the telephone, waiting for a ring, a ting-a-ling. I'm all alone every evening. All alone, feeling blue, wondering where you are and how you are, and if you are all alone too.
I'm sorry that you feel sad, the young woman sympathetically stated. Sad? The man replied. I am not sad. Morose perhaps, but surely not sad. In fact, I thrive in the opaque chambers of my mind. I find joy and inspiration in its dusty cobweb corners. I feed on its melancholy raptures, dance among the embers of my haunted dreams, bathe in the swirling black pools of despair and anguish. I wander endlessly in its darkened hallways. I find comfort and solace within its ebony confines. For my dear, one cannot see the stars shining in the sky, smell the succulent perfume of the moon lilies, hear the frantic flapping of the bat's wings, or be kissed by the glowing warmth of the full moon, until the sun is set and Cimmerian shade devours the land. The pale, the cold, and the moony smile which the medium beam of a starless night sheds on a lonely and sea-grit isle, ere the dawning of morn's undoubted light, is the flame of life so fickle and wane, that flits round our steps till the strength is gone. O man, hold thee in courage of soul, for the stormy shades of thy worldly way, and the billows of clouds that around thee roll, shall sleep in the light of a wondrous day, where hell and heaven shall leave thee free to the universe of destiny. This world is the nurse of all we know, this world is the mother of all we feel, and the coming of death is a fearful blow to a brain unencompassed by nerves of steel, when all that we know or feel or see shall pass like an unreal mystery. The secret things of the grave are there, where all but this frame must surely be. Through the fine-wrought eye and the wondrous ear, no longer will live to hear or to see all that is great and all that is strange in the boundless realm of unending change. Who telleth the tale unspeaking death, who lifteth the veil of what is to come, who painteth the shadows that are beneath the wide winding caves of the peopled tomb, or who uniteth the hope of what shall be with the fears and the love for which we see.
An ominous voice whispered from beyond. Mina awoke from what she perceived as a horrible, wretched nightmare, only to realize it was not a dream. 10 years ago, she witnessed with incredulous horror the beast that had assailed her spirit, her sanity, her life, lose its head and turn to dust. It nearly killed her husband, Jonathan, their friends Arthur Homewood, Dr. Seward, and Dr. Van Helsing. Her dear friend Lucy Westenra and Quincy Morse would not be so lucky, but thus ended the terrorist reign of Count Dracula, or so she thought. The carriage raced through the obsidian night. Although she knew not where she was, Mina knew where she was going, back to the broken battlements of Dracula's castle, where it all began and ended 10 years ago, for the Prince of Darkness has returned, claiming Mina for his own. Uncertain of what dreaded fate lies ahead, she is powerless to fight his volition, and beneath the starless sky, under his dark command, the carriage bore on. The castle sat above a vast, desolate wasteland. As the carriage drew closer, clouds dark and low rolled in with haste, the wind brisk and chilling, and an eerie gloom engulfed the landscape. A pack of wolves ran alongside the black carriage, barking and howling as they escorted the unwilling passenger to her final destination. Once upon the crumbling fortification, they halted their course and dissipated into the shadows of the night. The carriage passed through the portcullis, then pulled up slowly to the fore building and came to a halt. Mina could hear a burst of thunder in the distance from the approaching tempest. The doors of the keep shrilled loudly as they slowly swung open. A bolt of lightning shot across the squalid sky, tearing open the clouds and releasing a torrent of rain. Mina opened the carriage door and quickly leaped out, en route to the keep to seek refuge from the frigid, unrelenting downpour. Racing up the ancient stone steps, she turned and glanced behind her towards the carriage. Her dismay saw that there was no driver and the coach box abandoned. Turning back toward the entrance, she saw a red mist form, then a white face with glaring red eyes appeared before her, as it slowly transformed into a tall, thin man with distinct features, full red lips, and sharp white teeth. With a sweep of his arm, the deluge suddenly ceased, and he spoke. Bună seara, Mina. I bid you welcome to my home. Time appears to have been most kind to you, as your beauty is unmarred. It is most regrettable that we parted in such an unforgivable manner on your last call. Oh yes, I am painfully aware that you and your husband Jonathan returned a mere 3 years ago to confirm that I was still indisposed. I apologize that I could not greet you upon your visit, but I was still recovering from the most brutal attack that your husband and his band of merry marauders inflicted upon me. It is a shame about Mr. Quincy Morse, is it not? Please allow me to offer my condolences. How can this be? Your body burned, you turned to ash. We stood and watched as the wind displaced your ashes. Ah, yes, that was most unfortunate and quite painful, but my revenge knows no bounds. There is no power under heaven that can stop me. I am eternal, as is my love for you, Mina. Love? You know nothing of love. You own, possess, conquer, and destroy lives, but do not love. How dare you? How dare you come into our lives again? You are correct, my dearest Mina. I possess you. You, Mina, are a part of me as I am a part of you. You do not possess me. I broke free of your treachery when you were destroyed. You cannot destroy me. I admit I underestimated the determination of Mr. Harker and his cohorts, a fatal error on my part. But even eternal darkness cannot keep me away from you. Can you not find it in your heart to love me again, as you once did? With a myriad of emotion, Mina shouts, I never loved you. My hatred for you only surpasses my love for others. Mina angrily spat in the Count's face in a manner unbecoming of a lady. I am sorry you feel that way, but you have no choice. You will be my bride. Dracula looked into Mina's eyes intensely, fire raging within his pupils. She soon fell under his spell, fighting against him with every last bit of her will. He then spoke without words, and she turned her head, pulling down her collar, exposing her soft, pale throat. He gently caressed her hair, inhaling deeply of her essence, then whispered in a menacing tone, So fragile is thy spirit, so frail is thy flesh. He leaned his head back, opened his mouth, and suddenly lunged forward, attacking like a hungry animal. Piercing the tender nape of her neck with his razor-sharp fangs, the beast began to feed, sucking and slurping up the life-sustaining fluid. When he finished, he pulled up his sleeve and cut into the alabaster skin of his wrist with his fingernail. As the blood flowed freely from the wound, he held it up to Mina's mouth. Drink, the Count commanded, and she began to lap up the vermilion fluid. Wallowing in his moment of exquisite ecstasy, Dracula drops his guard. Without warning, Mina strikes. She pulls a stake out from underneath her dress and thrusts it deep into Dracula's chest. Dracula steps back with a look of astonishment on his face as he pulls out the stake and laughs. You cannot kill me, Mina! Dracula boasts. Mina falls to her knees, burying her face into her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. Dracula begins to act unusually. His body writhes and contorts, stumbling around like a newborn fawn. Dracula asks surprisingly, "What have you done, Mina?" Mina looks up angrily, tears and blood dripping from her face. "Your pride has failed you yet again. A gypsy woman greeted us on our last visit and foretold your return. She gave me a book that contained an ancient potion that would subdue you. I covered the stake with it. Soon you will succumb, powerless to move or sleep. You will be in limbo, alone, unable to act for 1,000 years. By then, the world will no longer fear you. When the sun rises in the sky, you will be mine forever. I will be waiting for you, as you too will be alone, as the ones you love will grow old and die. And then, we will start anew. Until then, I bid you farewell, Mina Harker." "I will not be like you again," Mina cries out. With a dynamic laugh, Dracula swirls around, turning into a charcoal mist, and quickly flees into the castle, into the sanctuary of his coffin, before the potion takes full effect. Mina, now cursed with being a vampire at the rising sun, throws herself off the ramparts as the morning begins to break the horizon. "Forgive me, Jonathan," she pleaded as she plummeted into the ravine below, her life flashing before her eyes, the joys, the sorrows, the pain, all dashed in an instant upon the jagged rocks, ending it all. As the sun takes its seat in the sky, marking the new day, Mina's broken body lies lifeless in the cooling shade of evergreens. Moments later, her eyes open, and her body heaves as it breathes in new life.
Good evening and welcome back. We hope you enjoyed the show. We hope you had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun relating these stories. I was laid up for the entire month, so I had nothing to do but write. They were a lot of fun tonight, and I hope you enjoyed them. I hope you enjoyed the music of Ferdinando, and I'd like to give a shout out to William Westwater across the pond there in Scotland for flying all the way in on his little flappy bat wings and doing a little number with us. Also like to thank Lulu's Storage Room for supplying these wonderful Victorian puppets. They're absolutely wonderful, and I have a feeling we're going to see some more coming up. Maybe the next show, perhaps. Yes, but you didn't hear that from me. And of course, I'd like to thank you all for coming out and joining us. It is with your support that we keep doing these, and they're a lot of fun, and I'm glad you enjoy them all. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And that's about the wraps it up. So a quick little shout out to my brother and his partner, Krista. What's up? And take care, and we'll see you in December. Happy Halloween.